Thank you both very much indeed for coming in. Jenny, it's nice to see you again. Last time we saw you, we were in your house, now you're in ours.
That's right.
We went to see you because we were finding out about Sara and Hayden, your kids, who suffer from a lysosomal disease. So just very briefly tell us a little bit about their condition.
It's a rare genetic disease. It's a storage disease, so they have enzymes that don't work properly. So the cells are unable to do their recycling process. Its multiple organs are affected. Their major problem though is skeletal and mobility issues.
So how does that affect them on a day-to-day basis?
Hayden is in a wheelchair full time. He has an added complication of being a paraplegic, which I think is probably slightly secondary to the disease. And Sara uses a wheelchair for long distances but walks around the house with a walking frame. And
there was a significant degree of pain?
Oh yes, sorry, pain is a huge issue in mucolipidosis. We were fortunate enough though to find a treatment that keeps their pain at bay. It's increased their mobility, but it's ongoing.
Now we went to see you because you were about to have an auction, including auctioning some of Sara's art. How did the auction go?
Oh, it went great. We raised $30,000, which will go to help families in New Zealand with lysosomal diseases. And Sara's painting sold for $600, and she got 2 commissions from it. So it's all very exciting.
That's really good, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the research into what mucolipidosis is, what's going on, it's continuing all the time, isn't it? And that's why we've got you here today. Tell us a bit about the scholarship that you got.
Well, last year I was asked to apply for an AMP scholarship. They have a community scholarship that they give out every year, and it came in 2 parts. So first of all I applied for a scholarship to do a bone consensus meeting, which we did in New Zealand. I won that, and then AMP advised me that they wanted to put me through to their premier scholarship level. So I completed another application and chose the research project for a natural history study for glycoprotein storage diseases, and that's a subset of the lysosomal group. And so I won that scholarship. It was a $30,000 scholarship, and we've been able to proceed now and do a natural history study for New Zealand and Australian children. And so for the last 2 weeks, Sara and I have been in Sydney and here in New Zealand and gathering the data and meeting the families and connecting them up.
Which brings us to Sara, who is a clinician. So where do you fit into this?
Well, so I'm a clinical geneticist, and so I see people with rare diseases and have an interest in this subset, this group of conditions called the glycoprotein storage diseases, and am involved in a project learning about each of these conditions in the natural history. And Jenny had the opportunity to get this scholarship money and doesn't want the families from New Zealand and Australia to be left out of that. And these conditions are very rare, and so we really do need to pay attention to the affected individuals from all over the world.
Because I think one of the things that came up when we met the family the first time was that they had been let down by the health system. It was like, this is too hard, into the hard basket it goes. But that's not just New Zealand, is it?
That's not just New Zealand. Rare diseases are rare everywhere, and no one system is prepared to deal with things that you don't encounter very frequently. So many of the stories and the heartache that Jenny and her family have been through, families in all parts of the world have experienced. If your child is the one and only child with this disease that your medical community has ever seen, it's difficult.
Because that was the thing that came out, was that you are very isolated, aren't you? It's not just, you don't think, oh well, I'll cope with it. You're on your own.
Oh, absolutely. And I think going to Sydney last week and actually for the first time in my life meeting those families and realising what their isolation was, it's actually quite shocking in this day and age that we still have patients who have, or families who have never ever met another family with exactly the same disease. And I think what shocked me was that they all lived in and around Sydney, And so I know that my job for ISMRD, who are the international advocates for glycoprotein diseases, I've got a huge job ahead of myself. I want to see the isolation broken for families. I want to see the connections being made, and I think the natural history study is going to help to do that, because obviously as time goes on and Sara extends the study, ISMRD will be helping bring those families together. So we'll be playing a very active role in helping to break that isolation for families.
So what happens next, Sara, with the research? You've now got, you've met the Australian and New Zealand end of it. What happens now?
Well, so we've seen people with several different diseases, and so we're compiling not only the information about how they've done up to this point, but we were going to keep contact with these families and see what progresses, what changes for them over time. We've also gathered samples, blood and urine and biological samples, and so there's a laboratory component of this, and so smart people in the lab are thinking about things in a different way than I do, and we're gathering the x-rays, and so we're building a resource of information, not just for the families, but also for the professionals that take care of them, and for the researchers who have an interest and are keen to help us treat these diseases.
Because one of the interesting things you were telling me was that when you researched into what literature there was, you pretty much came up with zero.
It's very limited. It's very limited on the actual patient reports of individual people that have these conditions. There's not a lot out there in our medical literature. All of these conditions, we know the enzymes that are deficient and the problem, and we know even the genes that are involved, but we really don't know the people very well, and so that's what we're trying to do.
Because the interesting thing, don't listen to this bit because it'll go to your head. Jenny is remarkable, isn't she? She's a remarkable
totally
woman.
Remarkable. But it's the families that are driving this research. It's the families that have said, it's our turn, pay attention to us. And a lot of research and progress has been made with other somewhat related conditions, and now it's their turn, and we need to make progress with these diseases, and it's family driven. I'm here, and this research is getting done because of Jenny and her organization, because of the ISMRD, and because of the Rare Disease Network here in New Zealand.
So do we have a time scale for what happens next?
You know, everything is funding dependent, but we're going to carry on like it's ongoing. We need to continue to gather information. We need to check back in with these folks in a couple years, and we need to be able to report the progress back to the families. So I don't have an end date, because I think we need to keep going.
Just keep going. Well, thank you both very much indeed for coming in. Keep in touch with us. Let us know how it all goes. But nice to meet you. Thank you.
Will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sometime down in the future there'll be a cure for Hayden and I. So I hope, basically that's what I think hope means, that one day there might be hope for Hayden and I.